Welcome back to our conversation this morning with former Boston Police Commissioner, now WBZ-TV security analyst, Ed Davis. And speaking of security, Ed, violent crime is up in Boston over last year in many cities around the country. Why and what are your concerns about summer in the city that lies ahead?
Well, historically, summers are the most difficult time. And when the unemployment rate is high, we usually have more violence on the streets. So that's extremely troubling right now. The reasons for the relationship and the work that needs to be done on it are varied, but require really hard, solid work. And I think it's really important that as we approach the challenges in the summer, we remember that the only way policing works is in teamwork with the people who live in the neighborhoods. And people are looking not for less policing. People are looking for respectful policing. I'm quoting Al Sharpton there. I'll tell you that the police are necessary to a safe and civil society. And what we're seeing is a lack of trust in policing and a little bit of depolicing that's occurred. Police are confused now as to exactly what the community wants them to do. We have to set the ground rules for everybody so that the police can understand that they have the community support in implementing strategies. And I'm proud to say, John, that I was able to reduce the crime rate every year that I was the commissioner in Boston, and also reduce the arrest rate. Our arrest rates fell dramatically over the 7 years that I was there. One of my proudest achievements.
Well, speaking of confusion in policing and public perceptions and then the interaction of the police and the public, just last week, a U.S. Senate report on the January 6th riot at the Capitol was released that essentially said the Capitol Police were caught flat-footed. And you and I talked back then, right after that happened, and we talked about the images of the Capitol Police waving the protesters in. There were a couple of cases of them posing for selfies with the rioters. You know, then a few days later, last week, after that Senate report, there was an Inspector General's report on the violent removal of protesters from Lafayette Park across from the White House. I think people remember just about a year ago. I still can't get over the contrast between the way law enforcement there and elsewhere treated mostly peaceful protesters against police violence and the seemingly laissez-faire attitude about what proved to be a deadly pro-Trump mob. Now that time has passed, do you have any further insight into what the hell happened?
Well, it was a total breakdown in command. The resources that were necessary to deal with a crowd of the size that descended upon the Capitol were not there. Unlike the situation at Lafayette Park, where the number of police looked like they outnumbered the number of demonstrators. You know, I have a lot of...
Because they thought Trump supporters wouldn't turn on them?
No, I think there were clear indications that there was going to be violence at that situation.
Right.
I think it was a breakdown in command, and the chief of the Capitol Police did not have the authority to bring in the assistance that he needed to repel that crowd. I think everybody had a hands-off attitude. There's a lot of talk about we didn't want that visual of troops being in the area of the Capitol. That broke because of politics and lack of command. It didn't break because the police did anything other than try to protect the Capitol and themselves.
And yet it was okay to roll out the heavy artillery at some Black Lives Matter demonstrations.
No question, no question. The visual of some of that stuff is horrendous. Don't get me wrong. We took great pains here in the Boston Police Department to keep those resources hidden away, to only bring them out if trouble started, to not put helmets on unless the rocks were thrown. We learned that over the 7 years that I was there, and some agencies have not learned that lesson.